Ricardo had it right. Okay. Like, I'm not going to disagree with David Ricardo. Okay. Like, I'm a, neoclassically trained economist. David Ricardo, and indeed neoclassical economics, would argue that GDP will be the biggest under free trade. And any measures to reduce free trade is going to result in smaller GDP. I totally agree with that. But on the behalf of the Expendables, why do I give a shit about GDP? GDP's done really good over the last 20, 30 years. The problem is I haven't seen any benefits from GDP growth. So I'm all for policies that cut me a bigger piece of the pie. And if, as a result of cutting me a bigger piece of the pie, we have a smaller pie, that's not my problem. That's the problem of the 1% who's been engorging themselves on the spoils of GDP growth. But I do not disagree with David Ricardo. Now, neoclassical economics will tell you that everybody can be better off by increasing the size of the pie, but it presumes that we can redistribute some of the gains from the winners to the losers to make everybody better off. While theoretically that's true, empirically the opposite has happened. That as free trade has thrown more and more people on the social safety net, the social safety net has shrunk, and that's not unrelated to free trade itself.
Yeah.
I do not believe we have a particularly progressive. That is a myth. And let me speak on that. I did a paper for CG when I was a senior fellow there. I'm sure they're not proud of the affiliation. But anyway, looking at household income. And I discovered that 80% of Canadian households had seen no real income gain. No big surprise. I have found out that the 1% of Canadian households, did the most. No big surprise. But what surprised me, what shocked me, was that the top 1% did better on an after-tax basis than on a pre-tax basis. And I went, how can that possibly be? We have a progressive marginal tax system where in most provinces, the top marginal tax rate is north of 50%. But that's on wage income. The top 1%, it's not their paycheck that puts them in the 1%. It's capital gains, it's dividends, it's inheriting. Okay, well, in capital gains, only 50% of it is taxable. Is 50% of wages taxable? If you're a minimum wage earner, 100% of your income is taxable. If you're a billionaire making hundreds of millions in capital gains, only half is taxed. And Canada is the only country in the G7 that doesn't have an inheritance tax. Like, even in billionaire-friendly United States, it's 40%. Now, perhaps that won't change under Trudeau and when Morneau was the finance minister, because both of them have been beneficiaries of that, and I'm sure they intend their kids to remain that. But who knows? Get a Bernie Sanders in the NDP, or even maybe that'll change. If you had a progressive tax system that not just on the taxation of wage income, but the taxation of inheritance, dividends, and capital gains, then David Ricardo would be right. Then, increases in GDP can be redistributed so that everybody is better off. But that's not the way our tax system works. And it's the mobility, the very mobility of capital and trade, that is the reason why governments, even those that want to redress this issue, feel that their hands are tied.